Welcome to the Modern Monk podcast. This is episode number 5. Today we're talking about aligning your goals with you. I'm Cormac Taylor. I'm joined with Mr. Toby Chilver. How you doing, Tobes?
I'm feeling good. Happy to be here.
Yeah. All right, let's get started. So why should you align your goals with you?
Something we've touched on all throughout the podcast, I think, is identity. And I think part of your identity is the goals that you set for yourself, because they're almost a depiction of the future self that you want to be. So if your goals are not aligned with who you want to be, then you won't end up becoming your best self. I think there's an almost intangible aspect of alignment of yourself, your goals, and who you want to be. And sometimes it can be hard to pin that down to something that isn't feelings. Like things like synergy and these words that I find hard to define but feel right when you're talking about alignment of your goals come to mind. But the way I like to think about it is working towards your goals is a really difficult task. I imagine it like you're digging a tunnel, almost with your bare hands. It's a really difficult thing to do to achieve these things. And so it's really important that when you dig this tunnel and you pop out the other side, that you are where you want to be, because there's nothing more demoralizing than doing all that digging and ending up and realizing when you pop out the tunnel that, oh, this isn't actually where I wanted to be. This isn't who I wanted to be. And then you got to put your head back down and start digging again. So
yeah, that's a great point, because I think a lot of people don't take a lot of time to figure out what their goals are, but they get straight into just going all at it. And as you say, if you're digging a hole with your bare hands and it's going to take you a really long time and you pop out the other side and don't know, and you realize it's not what you wanted, that is a tough position to be in.
Yeah, and I mean, no one wants to be in that position, but a lot of people I feel like end up in that position. Yeah, but I mean, how do you see it? Aligning yourself with your goals?
Yeah, so as I said, a lot of people, I think, don't spend a lot of time thinking about what their goals actually are. And as a consequence of that, I think we end up living our life and aligning our goals with other people's goals that they have set upon us. So we end up living someone else's dream rather than our own. And I reckon this is a really tough position to be in, because as you said, it takes a very long time to achieve some of these goals. And if you come out the other side and you realize this is never what I wanted in the first place, that is a horrible position to be in. That's where you get some sort of existential crisis where you're like, this is not where I wanted to see my life whatsoever. And a lot of us, particularly goals around our career, I think these are the big ones where we often don't think a whole lot about it. I mean, think about how many people go down the same career path as their parents, right? People they surround themselves with. Other people's goals for your life. And I think if you never really decide and think about how do I want my life to turn out, other people are going to choose how they want your life to turn out. And you're going to end up aligning your goals with how they see that your life should be. And you end up living someone else's dream for your life. And I think it's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, I think there's nothing worse than that, but I think it's so true. Lots of people want to have a say in who you become. And I think if you don't have the strength of character to know who you want to be, you end up being pulled and swayed in every which direction. Whether it's your boss at work, they set a stretch goal for you, they want you to achieve this thing. And if you don't actually know what you want to get out of it, you'll end up just working towards that. Same thing with parents, same thing with, just friends or people you hang out with. Yeah. So everyone wants to have a say in your life. I think it's just an innate thing that people kind of transpose their own ideas about who you should be, what you should want onto you. And if you don't know who you are and what you want, you'll end up living someone else's goals and becoming someone you didn't want to be. And then you won't realize it until the moment you achieve it or you hit some existential crisis.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately we all want to avoid that situation as best as possible.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. We're going to continue. I think the default position to be in is living out someone else's dream for your life. And you talk about the strength of character, and I think it's a big thing, because a lot of the time, if you're trying to live out a goal that you have for your life, sometimes it's going against what everyone else wants for you. And that is tough, and that requires a strength of character. That requires you to say, despite what other people think that I should be doing with my life, that is not how I want my life to be. and you have to go against what everyone says. Maybe you have to go against what everyone else is doing to get to that goal. But I think achieving that is going to be far more fulfilling than just getting in the stream, just floating down the river of life with everyone else.
Yeah, and I think you raised the point fulfillment there. I think that's a big part of this whole topic. And it seems a little bit selfish. We're talking about aligning your goals with you. What do you want? But this is something where I think it's okay to be really selfish about it, because it's your life. You're the one who's going to have to live it, spend all of your time as this person. You don't get any real do-overs. It's your time. So this is the time to be selfish, to sit with yourself and really define who you are, what you want, before you set out on completing all these tasks, obtaining all these goals that will define you.
I love that. I love that word selfish, because I think when it comes to your goals, you have to be selfish. You really have to be selfish.
And selfish probably isn't even the right word to describe it, because I innately don't think it is selfish, but it appears as a selfish thing to be choosing yourself. But really, there's nothing less selfish about it, I think. I think it's just staying true to yourself and taking a stand on what you believe in, who you want to become. And I know people will call that selfishness because you're deciding for yourself instead of for someone else, but it's really more selfish to do what someone else wants just to please them and it make you unhappy.
Yeah.
I think ultimately if they knew that, they wouldn't impose that on you. But a lot of the time this is just passive actions that just happen. These are goals that get set for you and you end up flowing down the stream.
Yeah, it is tough, and it's what most people are doing. It's flowing down the stream. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of it comes from ego, I think. A lot of it is, because if you continue to achieve goals that everyone else wants for you, you're feeding your ego. You're becoming a better person in the eyes of other people, even at the sacrifice of how you see yourself. You're always appeasing other people's goals for you. And it is, in my opinion, it's all ego. How do I look in the eyes of other people? And I think it's a tough thing to do, to go against what everyone else is thinking, what everyone else wants from your life, and to go, no, I don't want that. I don't care for this period of time. I don't care about what you think about me. I have to focus on this one thing. This is what my goal is, because this is what I want to do, and pursue that.
100%. And I agree with you about ego. I think there's friction there in choosing something that is against what other people want from you. That's friction. That's a difficult thing to do. But then there's also internal friction of you releasing the ego, of having that status of being that person in their eyes. So, I mean, those are two separate things that you can and should and will need to tackle. And I think we've both been through those battles.
100%.
But yeah, they're two sides of the ego there, and it's a difficult battle, but it's one worth fighting, because, like we said, your goal defines your identity and who you become. So there's really nothing bigger and more important. And we talk a lot about, being in the stream of things. But how do you know if you're aligned with your goals? Sometimes that's going to feel right, like you're in a stream, you're flowing, but it is aligned. Sometimes it's not. How do you know?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So I think a good question to ask yourself, this is an interesting question, is if every single person in your life that you cared about their opinion for, all the people whose opinion you care about, if they suddenly died, what would your goals look like? I think it's a very good thought exercise, because if I thought about my life a few years ago, and we'll go into more detail about this later in the podcast, but I think most of the goals that I was pursuing, I would not pursue if everyone whose opinion I cared about did not exist. If they were just gone from the face of the earth, my goals would change significantly. And if you really thought, okay, if no one cared about what I was doing, what my goals are, what would they look like? And I think that is you at the end of the day. That is you thinking, what are my goals? Who do I want to become? Because as you said, it is the trajectory of your life and who you're going to become. Realistically, as long as you're actually actively pursuing your goals, the goals you set for yourself is how you're going to end up, who you're going to become. So what do I want to look like? Who do I want to become, despite what other people think? And I think if you just removed everyone's opinion, even just as a thought experiment, and thought, okay, what would my goals be now? if they're very different to what your goals are now, you probably don't have goals aligned with you. And that thought experiment, the answers you had there, that's probably closer to what your goals actually are.
Yeah, you're touching on a great point there that I didn't think of at all. I think it's so important to have that self-driven identity that is released from everyone else's expectations. I think like from the moment we're born, there's expectations set on us, and that ends up building the base of who we are and what we want and what we think we need to achieve. And it is a difficult thing to do, to imagine all these people you care about having no impact and starting from that baseline. But I think it's a very valuable exercise that would lead you to a much more aligned state of goals and direction. 100%.
Because you're just letting go of your ego. I don't care about other people's opinion of me. That's a hard thing to do because most of the decisions we make are based on how other people perceive us. So it's an easy experiment to do theoretically, but if you actually genuinely aligned your goals with that thought experiment, you would live probably a life very, very similar to what you would actually want, the outcomes you would want in your life, the person that you would want to become. And maybe people's opinions of you for a period of time will go down, especially when you're starting out and it's not working as fast as you wanted it to. You're not as mega successful as you thought you would be. Sure, for a small period of time, but if your goals are super aligned with you and who you want to become and what you truly care about, I think you're a lot more likely to actually attack them and go after them. Because if it's what you truly obsess over, what you truly care about, I think it's a lot easier to put the reps into that. It's a lot easier to do stuff that you truly want to do. If I was, doing my chartered accountancy, I don't care about that at all, but people think that that's a good thing for me to do for my life. I'm not going to do very well in that because I don't truly care about it. It's not truly who I want to become, but I think if my goals were super aligned with who I wanted to become, it would be a lot easier for me to attack these goals. And that's certainly what I've found. But how do you see it? Like how do you see that you can align yourself with your goals? How would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I first want to touch on what you said about when you're aligned with your goals, initially people's perception of you may decrease. But I think it's a great test of your inner circle, that if they see you pursuing something that you really care about it's visible to them. And if they're really someone who deserves to be in your inner circle, they'll pretty quickly get back on the bandwagon supporting you because they'll see the alignment. They'll see, okay, he really wants this thing and he's going after it, and it feels right or it looks right to them. I think it's a great test of who your real supporters are, and you hope that it's going to be your family and your close friends, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to let some people go if they're not supporting you becoming the person that you want to become. They're not really someone who deserves to be in your inner circle. That's not someone you want to keep around on your shoulder, whispering words in your ears, because it's all they're going to be whispering is, this is wrong, what are you doing? Just feeding into your self-doubt, because you're going to have self-doubt even if you are aligned with your goals. That's something that never goes away.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, that's a super good point. I want to touch on that a little bit more. One of my criteria for someone who's a friend, and it's not a massive criteria, but is a deal breaker, is if you're not at least neutral to my goals, then you cannot be my friend. Like, you cannot be actively against my goals. You can at least be neutral and not care. Preferably, you would support me and help me. But if you're actively trying to destroy my goals, or if you're actively feeding doubt, or you think it's, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, you can't be a friend in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think you need to completely cut those people out. I think sometimes it's good to have a diversity of experiences or diversity of perspectives. Yeah. But that's just not someone you want in your inner circle. You don't want to be feeding into that. You want to be taking that on board. It's just okay, that's what that person thinks. I'll I'll let it sit there.
Yeah.
So that's a great differentiator. But when I was thinking about how do you know when you're unaligned, I first thought about what does it feel like, and then what does it present as. And to me, the feelings are feeling unfulfilled, completing or achieving the milestones along the way to the goal. I think that's a big identifier of the fact that you're not aligned with your goal. If you're making progress, you're reaching milestones and it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel fulfilling. And if you also then are a little bit scattered or you're quick to choose new goals, then there was probably something wrong with the original goal where it wasn't aligned with you. And that comes with a grain of salt. Sometimes you do need to pivot your direction and it can be in the right direction. But I think there's an asterisk there that if you look back on the past 3-6 months, short to medium term, and there's been a lot of changes and maybe they're not all in the same direction, I think that's a point of reflection. And I think that presents itself in inconsistency. Because you spoke about it before, if you're truly aligned with your goals, doing the actions that achieve the results becomes easier.
Yep.
So if you're not aligned with your goals, the actions are then harder to complete and you will be less consistent completing them.
Which makes it way harder to complete your goal in the first place. And I really liked what you talked about there about achieving goals and not feeling fulfilled, because I actually had this situation maybe a year ago. One of my friends, he wasn't doing well. I could tell, mentally just wasn't there. And I checked in with him. I was like, what's going on? You're right. And he basically said, I've achieved all the goals I wanted to achieve and I'm really unhappy. And I didn't have an answer for him, but I think that what you said makes a lot of sense, is that probably his goals weren't aligned with who he actually was or who he wanted to become, and probably was more choosing goals for what other people wanted for his life. And I didn't have that answer for him, but I think that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of catch-22 things where you need to know who you are and what you want to pick the right goals. But you're almost not going to know who you are until you've started working towards something. So it's almost like, do I figure out who I am and then do I pick my goal, or do I start working towards a goal and then figure out who I am and go again? I don't know if you kind of get what I'm putting across here. Like, I think inevitably in reality, everyone's going to have some sort of goals, be working towards them, have some sort of point of reflection. I think it's really just about how far down that path do you go and how much choice did you actually have in the goals to begin with. Because I think a lot of people, on similar journeys to us, we go to school, we go to uni, or we do some sort of extra training, and then we get a job. And kind of all up to that point is not that much input in what the goal is. You have a little bit of direction as to, which field you go into, but a lot of that's set in stone for you. And so I think then naturally comes this pivot point where, you're in your early to mid 20s, you're really finding your feet, learning who you are, who you want to be. And I think then you can, from that position, choose goals that are better aligned with you. I mean, it'll be different for everyone depending on what type of person you are, what your strength of character is at that point. But I don't think you can solely just define who you are without working towards anything. People talk about the negative way markers that are just as useful as positive ones. So if you set, or it's probably easy to describe as if you meet someone and I don't want to have your relationship with alcohol. And then you meet someone else, I don't want to have your relationship with your sister. That's really useful to know because you know what to avoid, what I don't want to be like. And the same thing can happen with goals. Like if you set some goals and they make you feel a certain way when you're achieving these things, at least okay, that's not what I want. I think the problem is when people ignore that and they just keep digging.
Yeah.
Like the reminders, or not the reminders, listen to how the progress towards goals makes you feel and what people in your inner circle are telling you about how you present, like this friend who's completely unfulfilled, having obtained all their goals. I'm sure this wasn't a day where it all happened. Like it had been a progressive thing. And I think not being aware of that, not listening to yourself throughout that journey leads you to that position, because eventually you're going to change who you are and your goals should then change and you have to align them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the things that you spoke about a few podcasts ago, you've spoke about this a few times, is the idea of reverse engineering your life and thinking about where you want to end up and then working backwards from there to kind of figure out what your goals are. And when you talked about the negative way markers, If you think, okay, well, these are the things that I don't want from my life, and maybe these are a few things that I do want from my life, it's probably easier to figure out some goals, and it doesn't have to be super specific, but it can push you in the right direction so that you can start taking actions to move yourself towards that person you want to become, rather than, as you said, continuing to take actions and continuing to move towards goals that you might not want, and then constantly getting those negative feedbacks and still continuing to push forward.
Yeah, that's so right. And I think it's all about like the stage of the journey you're on. Like in the beginning, it is mostly just negative way markers and maybe a few distant positive ones that you're not really sure about. And you start moving towards them, and you're probably also learning more about yourself. And as those two things progress, the sharpness of your goal increases, your knowledge of yourself, your identity sharpens. And then ideally those things are aligned. But what we're talking about here is sometimes, you sharpen both those things and they're not aligned. You sharpen your goal and it's, I want to become a chartered accountant, but then you sharpen who you are and it's, I'm Cormac Taylor and this is what I think I want out of life. And those two things aren't aligned. That's when you need to take a second, reflect.
Yeah.
Align.
Align. Yeah.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I want to touch on how do role models and your social circles influence your goal alignment? How do you see that?
I think role models are hugely important because most of the time, your role models are at a completely different stage of life to where you are. And they will be spurting advice for people at their stage of life. You don't need to listen to that advice. You need the advice of that person when they were at the stage of life that you are currently at. And so if you can find yourself a role model that is able to drop themselves back into where they were in that journey and then speak from that experience, that will connect with you much more and lead you to much more aligned goals than listening to your role models talking about any advice to do with where they are now, because those things are completely different.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember cycling to work. This was last year. I was on my bike. It was freezing cold, middle of winter. It's pitch black outside. I'm on my 40-minute commute to work, and I'm a super wantrepreneur, right? I'm stuck in my 9-to-5 job, which I hate, and I'm like, all I want to do is be an entrepreneur. And I'm listening to a business podcast about how to scale to a 50-person sales team, and I don't have a product. I don't have a business, and I'm trying to learn how to scale to a 50-person sales team. And it's like, yeah, this guy is probably where you want to become, but this advice is not applied to you right now. And you're so right. You have to be tactical about what is your situation right now. Work with what you have, and then slowly that is going to become more relatable, and you might be able to take on that advice. But yeah, a lot of those people are just not going to be that helpful for your stage in the journey right now.
100%. And I mean that's the role model side of it for me, but then there's the inner circle, and I kind of see this as this should be your little microcosm of support that you fall back on if you need to. It should feel like when the going gets tough, there's people who lift you up or reconfirm for you that, okay, you are this person, you can achieve these goals. And if you're fortunate enough that you can create an inner circle that can provide that for you, your chance of success just absolutely skyrockets. I don't think anyone can really achieve anything truly great by themselves. You're going to have to rely on people, and ideally people are, like we talked about before, going to pull you up and not drag you down. And so who you're surrounding yourself with should be people who are also aligned, but it doesn't necessarily have to be aligned in the same direction as you. But if they're also aligned, but then just supportive of you being aligned, I think that's the most important thing. Like, I don't think you have to be aligned with your inner circle on what your goal is. But if they're just aligned with what their goal is, they'll appreciate and want you to be aligned with where your goal is.
Yep.
Like, for me, like good friends, they just want the best for you. And so they should be able to differentiate between when you're aligned and when you're not aligned. Like they should see that. Like a good friend, an inner circle, it should be so obvious to them when it's not.
Yeah. And you don't have to all be aligned on the same goal. And that is an important thing. One of the things that I think I've changed recently is that I used to think, oh, well, everyone has to be an entrepreneur because that's what I want to do. So everyone must think the same way. And that must be the case. But I've changed more recently to be thinking, I don't care so much what the goal is. I care that the person genuinely wants that goal and they're genuinely moving towards it. Because I think those are the people you want to surround yourself with, people that are actively moving towards goals. They actively are passionate at what they care about. These are the people that are going to help you move up, because a lot of the time at the start, you're not super clear on what you want. Like, I quit my job last year and I said, I want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't really know what that looked like. It was very foggy and unclear to me, but like, okay, this is what I want to become. Let me take this action. And you don't necessarily need someone who's doing the same thing, giving you this advice, but you more just need that momentum and people around you, as you said, that are just moving with you at the same pace, just pushing you up. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than people that are planting doubt into your mind or that are creating an environment that makes you want to kind of slack off. It's more that you want to have that forward momentum, and it's going to get more clear over time. The more reps you put into something, the more clear it gets. But at the start, you do just need that momentum more than anything. I think the circle provides that big time.
Yeah, momentum is interesting because what I'm thinking about there is if you're all aligned or you're all making progress towards goals, it works to be friends. The momentum, you share it bounces between each other. But when you have people in your inner circle who aren't as passionate about the things they're doing or aren't working towards anything, they're just in a different stage of life, or they have a different approach to things. That's friction. And that's something that I think eventually tears apart, people from in each other's inner circles, because there's something so good about being around people who are just passionate and moving in the direction that they want to go in. If you're also doing the same thing, it's just like, it's synergy. It's just, it lifts you up, you're lifting them up. But then the opposite is so true. If you have someone who just isn't chasing anything particular or is just not aligned with that kind of perception of moving forward, then what do you talk about? What do you share in terms of like commonalities? I think it really can just detract from and almost pull you back from achieving your future self and what these goals are ultimately for. And I think it's really hard to identify that sometimes in the moment. But it's a skill that I think everyone needs to learn. We talked about it before, like you might have to lose some friends to gain other ones. But yeah, this idea of momentum and like the friction between people who are also just passionate and moving, like that's something you want to find and foster and create in your inner circle.
Yeah. And we spoke about environment in our first ever podcast. We talked about creating the right environment. And a lot of that, one of the things I spoke about specifically was if you're in an environment which is not around people that have that momentum moving you towards your goals, you need that strength of character to become great despite the people around you. And I think when you surround yourself with people, they don't have to have the same goals as you, but as you said, they're passionate about what they do and they move with momentum with you. It's very, very easy to move as well, move at that pace, at that speed. And it doesn't have to be the same goals, but if you are moving together, it's very easy to make that progress. I wouldn't want to have to constantly rely on having a very strong character, because it may be intrinsically a part of you, but it's going to be stronger some days and weaker others. And if you're jumping on that stream with everyone else, you're just flowing with the flow of everyone around you. If you have those people with the passion and the momentum, it's very easy to float up the stream, rather than when you don't have that strong character, you're just moving away from your goals, you're going downstream a little bit.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. What I really want to know now is, when did you have goals that weren't aligned with who you were? I know you talked about being a chartered accountant, but tell me more.
Well, I didn't quite make it to becoming a chartered accountant, but I was on the journey. But yeah, so finished school, and then it was like, okay, what do you do when you finish school? you're 17, 18 years old. Realistically, no idea. Not a lot of people have a clear picture of what their life wants to look like at 17, 18 years old. What was everyone else doing? Everyone was going to university. What did my parents want to do? They wanted me to go to university, right? Everything around you is like, okay, go to university. That's what everyone does. So that's what I did. And I studied commerce. First year into university, I was like, oh, okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. Great. And then what happened? Well, then I spent 3 more years at university. And then I finished university and it's like, okay, cool. So we're going to be an entrepreneur. Well, what does everyone do after they finish university? Well, I'll get a job because that's what everyone else does. So I did that. And the job was great because it really just exposed, oh, this is your life and this is not what you want. And even in my job, I was like, okay, well, I'm working in an accounting firm. I guess I'll become a chartered accountant because that's what I'm being told to do. That's what the people around me are doing. And I did that. And I just thought, what am I doing? This is in 0% of the way aligned with my goal. And I heard a lot of people saying, oh, but you want to enter the workforce, you want to get a job because you want to make connections and that's really beneficial for building a business. And I just thought about it logically. I thought, okay, if I wanted to be an entrepreneur, if I wanted to be good at business, what is better? For me to work in an accounting firm and become an accountant and make 2 contacts that are not going to be very beneficial, or to start a business. What is better for becoming good at business? Probably starting a business, right? Am I going to be the greatest businessman within 6 months? No, of course not. And of course that comes with having to put your ego to one side and maybe seem lesser in the eyes of other people. But I just thought, okay, this is where I want to be long term, reverse engineer the life. This is the decision I have to make. But 5 years of having goals that were not aligned with myself at all. And it made me very unhappy. And I think when I think about my friend who was dissatisfied with his life despite achieving all his goals, I thought if I achieved my goals on that path, I would look the exact same. That's exactly how I would look. So yeah, that's when I did not align my goals with myself. And that was the majority of my adult life so far.
Yeah. And I mean, you say you wanted to be an entrepreneur at all these different, checkpoints in life, but then you just continued down the stream what other people wanted for you. How did that desire for wanting to be an entrepreneur change over the course of the...
We talk about the fuck this moment, the moment where your current situation is so painful that something has to change. And when I started working, it was finally where I was like, okay, this is really painful. Because when you're at uni, I'll maybe I actually didn't attend many lectures, but maybe I'll go to some tutorials, I'll pass my exams, and the rest of the time I'll be an unemployed alcoholic. And I was having a lot of fun. So, it's not hard to be like, my situation really sucks. I'm drinking beers all the time with my friends, okay? So it's like, my life is good right now. But then you enter the workforce and it's like, now all of my conscious hours are spent doing something I hate. And the pain was big enough where I went, okay, something has to change. And it really just came from the pain. It was just more pain than I could handle doing what I was currently doing. So I had to change. And that was the big thing for me.
Yeah. No, it's in some ways a heartbreaking story, but it's also a really nice one.
It would be heartbreaking if I was still doing that.
Exactly.
But it's
Much
good
more
that stuff has changed. Yeah.
I mean, 5 years sounds like such a long time, and it kind of is a long time at this point. But if you look back in 50 years' time, those 5 years is like, a blip.
Yeah.
And every year after that would have just been adding on to the time that you would have looked back with some level of regret.
Yeah. Okay, so tell me about you. When is the time that you did not have your goals aligned with you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I had a slightly different story to you. I didn't know that I really wanted to be an entrepreneur for a long time. I think the whole idea of my best self, my ideal outcome for life, really evolved quite rapidly in a short period of time. I was very much, I was a good student, and I enjoyed kind of the pleasing other people, whether it's my teachers, my family, people like that. And so I got a lot of value out of my identity from just being that person and, working through school, getting through uni, getting the job. And kind of all throughout that, I was updating my best outcome, my future self, what my best self could be, incrementally as with what I was achieving that next year. And it wasn't really until I had a moment where I could have accepted an offer to do an honours year, so an extra year of study after my bachelor's, or I got a call back from a company which had rejected me as a graduate, but they gave me a call back and offered me 3 months of work, so a short-term contract like an intern, and I had to choose between 1 year guaranteed working towards something that I think I might want, or 3 months, foot in the door, kind of doing the thing that you think you want, but there's no guarantees after that 3 months. I was like, hey, well, this is seems like a bit of a risky choice here. I have locked in something that's going to be good, it's good. Or there's a higher risk option that's potentially higher reward. And I only really had a day to think about it because I got the call on the day that I was supposed to sign the contract for my honours year. And so, I lent on some people and I ended up taking the plunge. I was like, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to get my foot in the door, do the job. And then 3 months came up and I was presented essentially the same split roads. Continue, we'll extend your contract another 3 months, or apply internally and see if you can land a full-time gig. And it was basically the same situation. I thought, well, it worked for me last time. Maybe it'll work for me again. I'll take the plunge. I'll take the riskier option. I turned down the contract extension and just applied internally. Landed myself a full-time job. And that was a really good experience for me because then I was in the full-time job and I saw what the next 40 years was going to be like. I'd made it to the pinnacle of someone in my career path was aspiring for. And I could just see it laid out, what all the steps were going to take me, what my life was going to look like. And I realized that I was going to be spending at least 40 hours every week working for this company or, doing this type of work. And then I was fortunate enough to be surrounded with you and some of our other close friends who were starting this kind of personal growth journey, this idea of being an entrepreneur. And that seemed like a really high risk option that had a huge potential upside. And I think as I kind of found myself and who I wanted to be, I was much more aligned with the idea of who my best self, my future self could be if I was an entrepreneur. I don't think I ever allowed myself to believe that it was possible for me, that I could be that person, that I could attain those levels of success without just following the stream. And I think when I started to believe that, and then that idea of who my best self was became a reality, I then had this huge disalignment with, well, this is what I'm spending all my time doing, working towards this outcome. But I now know, and part of me believes that I can do this and become this person. And I think this person is more fulfilled. I think they're happier. I think that they're more successful. They have a more enjoyable life. They're going to tell a better story. And so I had this huge disalignment. And so here we are now. We're quitting the job. We've started the business and we're taking the plunge. And I think the people around me can tell that I'm aligned with my goals because of how I am day to day. I'm excited by the work I do. I'm excited for the goals that I have for myself. I just generally, I hope, give off energy of someone who's passionate about something and wanting to move towards things. And I think if you had talked to me without that kind of experience, without me taking that plunge, I would be a very different person, maybe, more muted, less passionate about life in general, just getting entertainment or enjoyment out of other hobbies that weren't really aligned with who I was. I truly just don't believe I'd be the person that I am right now.
Yeah, and your growth has been pretty crazy if we think about the belief side of things. I think that was a huge unlock for you. The way that you perceive the potential for your life has changed a lot, because I remember speaking to you less than 2 years ago about what is the prime of your life? What is the absolute goal? You were in a long-term relationship at the time, and you were like, well, I'm just going to continue working in this company. I might make $110,000 a year. Maybe my girlfriend will do something good with her business, and that'll be my life. And how much your goals for your life have changed has been crazy. And that's that shift in belief, which has been insane to watch. I think one of the big benefits that you had is you progressed in your career path really fast. Like you got to a point for people in your field that would take, 10, 20 years, like basically the prime of their career. And I think that's very beneficial for you because you got to see what it would look like in the end. You basically you haven't reached the pinnacle, but you're not far off. And at your trajectory, you'd get there pretty quickly. And I think that's helped you see that side. And now that you have this big belief, I can see where that misalignment came. And you can definitely tell how you've changed as a person as you started to align yourself more with that person that you're going to become. And it is based on the actions that we're currently taking and that I predict that we're going to continue to take, it would be unreasonable for you not to become that person.
Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate that. And there's so many things wrapped up in that story and kind of both our stories. It's the fear of not believing that you can achieve the things that this option, makes possible. Like the great thing about entrepreneurship is you truly can do anything, become anyone. And that's really scary because nothing is guaranteed and it's almost all on you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, that's another topic for another day. But,
it is.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it again, but lay it out for me how you realigned yourself when you found that you became unaligned with your goals and who you were.
Yeah, this was a big one for me, and it was nearly exclusively this, and it was caring more about my goals for my life than other people's goals for my life. And it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to believe it and act that way. And for a very long time, I was playing out the goals for other people's desires, goals for my life. And as soon as it was not, clear as mud, not super clear, but I had some sort of idea of where I wanted my life to be. And there was a strong desire for that. And it was certainly not other people's goals for my life. I just had to put everyone else's desires and wishes for what my life wanted to become to the side and say, okay, I understand what you think, how you think my life should be, but I'm not going to do that. I have to not even think about this and put my goals for my life above everyone else's. And as I said, it's an easy thing to say, but it's a hard thing to do because it basically means that you are lesser in the eyes of nearly everyone that you care about for probably quite a while. Because especially if you want to become an entrepreneur, the start is really tough. You're not going to see results for a very long time. People are going to constantly question what you do. They're going to constantly say, yeah, you probably should have done the thing I told you to do. And then you're going to fail over and over and over and over again. But you just have to continue to take the actions that you know are going to get you to the goals. And I think having this equation, I probably talk about this equation every single podcast.
Run it back.
But if I do these actions, it would be unreasonable that I don't achieve my goal. And there were so many times, and there's not as much now, but there certainly were at the start, where there's all that self-doubt, and I just had to literally write down, if you continue to do these actions, it would be unreasonable that you do not achieve your goal, because you have all this noise in your head. But if you say, okay, these are my inputs, if I just do this based on what I understand, it would be unreasonable that I don't achieve my goal. And this is my goal. This is what I truly care about. This is not what other people care about for me. And that's been very helpful for me, removing that doubt, really, because the doubt is always there, but it's going away, to be honest. I know we say, it's always going to be there. And sure, it will be there to some extent, but that's really helped that go away. But primarily putting my goals for my life over other people's goals for my life is how I've been able to align my goals with me and who I truly want to become.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful thing to do. And it's so key to living out the rest of your life in a way that is fulfilling and is going to create your best self. Like, I think you truly now believe that you are going to become your best self.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what else is there more in life than having that as the outcome?
That's it, getting the outcome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know getting the outcome is definitely part of it, but I mean, for me, we touched on it before, like the ego and the fear. And I think the one thing that you have to do to truly align yourself with your goals is burn the boats. Because until you burn the boats, the self-doubt everyone else's perception of you, your own ego, the fear, will be nudging you back towards the comfort of the less fulfilling but certain path. It will just be increasingly harder and harder because you will reach failure after failure after failure. There will be long periods with no success where you continually have to choose, this is my goal, this is who I am, I'm staying aligned to this. If you are trying to do that and you also have this beautifully laid out, easy path that's easy for you to switch back to, you can get back on the boat, you're only making it more difficult to yourself because it's almost a reminder that you don't believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
And we say burning the boats, but really there's no such thing as really burning the boats. You're going to be where you are, you're going to figure it out, and you're going to get where you need to go. But you need to fully disconnect, burn the boats from wherever you are that's unaligned to commit yourself to aligning yourself with your new goals.
Yeah, and I think one of our big problems is seeing them as boats, as actual options. Because one of the things that really helped me is saying, this path you're currently taking is guaranteed to lead you down a path that you don't want to become. So that is no longer an option in your head. There's no longer a thing that you should be thinking about. And one of the things that we say to each other all the time, and is true, is that we will figure it out. When you burn the boats, you have no option but to do what you're going to do. That is all you're going to do, and you are going to figure it out. And we have not figured it out, right? Having that belief that you will figure it out is very helpful. And it is true. You will figure it out, right? It might not be as glamorous as you want it to be. There might be times where you're not perceived as well as you would want to be, but you will figure it out. And if you truly believe that, like we believe that, then you can align yourself with your goals and you can burn the boats and you will eventually get there.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like the boat you're on is technically sinking because it's you not becoming the person that you want to be, and you're just not admitting it to yourself. So you're on a sinking boat. You may as well go get to land and burn the boat because it is sinking. You're spending your time not becoming your best self or not moving in the way that you want to move. You're not achieving the things that truly matter to you. And you're just putting it off because like a frog in hot water, it doesn't realize it's getting boiled, and you're not going to be able to jump out until you start listening to the signs and you see the disconnect, and I don't know, yeah, it's just that's such a great way of putting it. The boat isn't going anywhere. So burning it really, once you understand that, you truly believe it, it really isn't that difficult of a decision.
Yeah, and we don't think about the opportunity cost, but there is a big opportunity cost. If you keep going on this sinking boat, there is that boat that you hopefully will eventually take. What is stopping you from getting on that boat right now? Because the more time you spend on the sinking boat, the slower the other boat's going to be. As soon as you can just jump on the boat that you want to be on and start making progress, sure, it might be slow at the start. Of course, it's going to be slow at the start, but it's moving you in the right direction. There's nothing worse than a boat that is sinking and taking you in the wrong direction, because you're never going to get to your goal if it's not moving you towards your goal in the first place. So understanding that you can just get on this new path and you can just start now. We talk about this all the time. There's so much fear, and it's basically all fear. That's the only thing that's stopping you from getting out of your current situation and getting on the new path, getting on the new boat. It is entirely fear. Fear of what other people think about you, fear that you're not going to achieve it, fear that there's things that you don't know. But fear of failure, but you're going to figure it out. And if you believe that you can figure it out, get on the boat as quickly as possible.
Okay. What are 3 things that I can do today to align myself with my goals?
Okay. First of all, what are your current goals? Audit. We need to know what your current goals are.
Time audit is step number 1.
But you need to think, okay, what are my actual goals right now? Because whether we have defined them or not, you're moving towards something, right? So you do have goals. Whether you've set the goal or not, you are probably moving towards something. So you need to know what your goals are. Then I think we need to do the thought exercise. If everyone whose opinion I care about died, what would my goals look like? I would write both of these down, look at both of them. Are they the same or are they different? If they're different, your goals are probably not aligned with you and who you want to be. Step 3 is realizing that these are probably your goals. This is probably the boat that you have to actually take. And I think we want to surround ourselves potentially with people who are moving in a similar direction. We think about not only in real life, not only the people we surround ourselves with, but the content that we're consuming, right? The information we're getting should be related to the goals we want to achieve, because we don't want to admit it, but a lot of our beliefs, a lot of who we become, we only really think about the people that we interact with in real life. But if you're consuming a lot of information from people online, these people are parts of your life. It doesn't matter that they don't know who you are. They're still part of your life. They're still influencing who you're going to become. So I think choosing these role models, choosing these people that are aligned with your goals is going to help you think like the people that are moving in a similar direction to you, giving you that momentum. And as we said, the physical people that you surround yourself with, they don't have to have the same goals as you. But I think finding people that have that passion, have that momentum is helpful in moving you towards that goal. But I think if we know what the goals are, despite what everyone thinks about us, this is probably who we want to become. We probably need to burn that boat, get started on the new one. Start taking action. Action first. You're going to figure it out. It might be blurry what you want to do, but I think if you just start, it's going to become clear over time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, of all the 5 podcasts so far, I would say this is the one that the 3 steps will have the biggest impact if you do them right now. Like if you can really have some more awareness and thinking about who you are and what your goals are, and if you are unaligned, to at least see that as the problem. I think like following those 3 steps will just have a huge impact on your life.
Yeah, because the sooner you start making progress towards that destination. I think you're choosing the right goals. These are going to have exponential returns over time. So as soon as you get on that boat, you're going to start moving up there quickly. The more time that you sit on that sinking boat, the more time you're wasting, the more opportunity cost. Probably the more that you feel like, maybe that's what I should do. As we talk about the frog sitting in the boiling water, slowly rising in temperature, you're going to get comfortable. If you know what your goals are, let's get started. And as you say, if you take action on it right now, probably will change your life.
Yeah.
All right. What are your 3 steps?
I'm going to start with a thought exercise as well here. I would think really deeply and try and feel how you would feel when you obtain the goals that you currently have. Try and really become that person, sit in it. What do you feel like? What are you doing? Or how do you spend your time? And then assess, is that really what you want, who you want to be? Does that person look like your ideal self? And then try and push it even further and wipe the slate completely clean and just say, what is my ideal self? And what do they think about? What do they feel? What do they spend their time doing? I think that that's a good place to start. The second thing I would do is ask for feedback from your inner circle. It doesn't have to be as formal as, hi, can I have feedback on my goals? But get their gauge of like, do you think I'm a passionate person? Do you think I love what I do? Where do you think I'll be in 5 years? Where do you think I could be in 5 years? If you're asking these types of questions to people who really care about you and want the best for you, they're going to plant seeds in you that uncover this disalignment if it is there. And I think this is a good time where if you do have people in your inner circle who you know can give you that kind of feedback and truly care about what you want, then lean on them, ask them these questions.
And before you continue, I think the great thing about if you do have these people in your life is that they can sometimes see things that you don't see because you're so clouded in emotion. And I won't go into too much specifics, but we've had this recently with a friend. It was related to a girlfriend situation, but you could just see this was such a logical person, such an intelligent person that thinks about things objectively nearly always. But the mind was just so clouded with emotion. There was no logic at all. And it's very hard in his position to be able to come to a logical conclusion. But that was when having the friends around you who can make the decisions, look from a different perspective, can actually give you really good advice.
Yeah, you're going to have blind spots. And ideally, your inner circle should be able to point them out for you. And you should have trust in them that those are real problems. They're not just things that they don't know about. Yeah, there's definitely, but I think that's a great topic for next Tuesday. But finally, what I would do is think and find people who have achieved similar goals to what your goals are and figure out what their problems are after they've achieved their goals. Because those are the problems you're going to have. If your goal is to make $1 billion, go look at all the billionaires. What problems do they have? A lot of them are unhappy. A lot of them suffer from, crippling self-doubt. Like these, you're not the exception to the rule. If you look at the vast majority of people who have achieved something, you want to understand what their day-to-day life is. What are the issues that they struggle with? Because that's who you're going to be, and those are the issues that you're going to be struggling with. So I think clearly defining that for yourself is setting you up for success so that you don't come out the end of the tunnel becoming the person who then has issues that you never wanted from the beginning.
I love it. I don't want to add anything to that. I think that's perfect.
We'll leave it there then.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. I really like that one. I hope you guys enjoyed that podcast as well. So that was episode 6 of the Modern Monk podcast.
6?
6? No, 5. Sorry,
He's getting ahead of
5.
himself.
We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here. If you want to watch these podcasts live, if you want to join the Q&A, which we're going to start now after the podcast, or if you want to access this content a month early, then you can join the Modern Monk community and get all of this for free. You can go to school.com/Modern Monk to access that. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Any parting words?
Yeah, no, I had a blast. Can't wait for next week. And see you in the school community.